Peace, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm entitled this one, This Current World Isn't For Us. And the us that I'll be speaking about is ultimately going into the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel that comprises of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Because this current world, this current age being ran by the so-called white man, which is Esau Edom. This is his world. This is his kingdom. And once we came into the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we realized that we can't build an empire, a kingdom inside of another man's kingdom. Because a lot of Jake is a nickname for Jacob, which are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But Jake, especially here in America, has been made to believe by the propaganda, pseudoscience, and all these different philosophies that have been drilled into our people's heads, especially here in America, of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, through the indoctrination system, the public school system that has been so Jake can believe that we could so-called make it in this society, that we have a equal opportunity to make it in society. If you go to school, you work hard, you could be your own business owner and build up from rags to riches like these billionaires love to push. The Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musks, that you could make a $1 trillion empire out of nothing, which ultimately that's all bullshit, because all these CEOs, all these Jeff Bezos, these Bill Gates, they were all set up by the wicked elite, by the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. So Jake can believe that he can make it just like they did, but ultimately they're all a snare and a trap. So Jake can believe that they can make it too. And even at a lower level, these celebrities, these rappers, these professional sports players, NFL players, MLB, NBA players, were given these $1 million contracts, these $100-200 million contracts, so they could entertain Jake. So Jake can believe that he can also make it. And yeah, shit, you might make it in the sports league, but or as an actor, or a celebrity, a musician, a rapper, all these different musicians, or even a politician. But ultimately, you have to sell out to the so-called white man. You have to compromise your morals, like they say in this world. You have to sell your soul. But ultimately, is not selling your soul as you're literally giving your soul up to the so-called devil. No, is you compromising your morals, compromising what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has commanded us as Israelites to do. Going completely contrary to what the Lord commanded us to do. You gotta sacrifice your family members. You gotta bend down literally to the so-called white man to make it in this society. And knowing that, knowing what these celebrities, these rappers, these 2/3 Jakes, and even these lower level, these politicians, Jake that climbed up in a corporate ladder quickly. These executives, they went from a lower level employee to damn near, up high up in a corporate ladder at the blink of an eye, ultimately because they did some wickedness behind closed doors. But Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to reveal all the wickedness that these 2/3 Jakes, that these wicked ass so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the true Israelites, did, so they could get a so-called piece of the pie, which really ain't even a piece of the pie. It's crumbs, because even these billionaires, these Donald Trumps, these Elon Musk, even their wealth is bullshit. It's crumbs compared with these these Rothschilds, these Rockefellers have, because what these Rothschilds and these Rockefellers have is human resources. Literally, they own all these different nations, you know, through the banking system. They own all these different resources, all these different militaries. So that's true power, being sovereign over your enemies, and that's something that we don't have. It don't matter how many millions and trillions of dollars Jake makes. Ultimately, if we don't have sovereignty, and even if we did have sovereignty, like back during the time of King David and King Solomon, we had all these different nations under subjection, but ultimately what did we lack was immortality, was not going off, not sinning against Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. And that's the main thing that we're looking forward to, being in the kingdom of heaven with the new bodies, having the law, statutes, commandments written in our inward parts. And ultimately, that's reserved for the first fruits, for the elect of the nation of Israel, which consists of the 144,000, which is all men, all prophets, and the rest of that 1/3, which consists of the believers, the families, friends, helps of the prophets. Those are the ones who are going to be set up in that government body to rule in the next world to come, which is the next world is going to be ran by the Israelites, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven here on the planet Earth, not floating around in some air, with naked white, babies with arrows and harps. No, that's all bullshit. The kingdom of heaven is going to be established upon the planet Earth by the nation of Israel, starting with Yahweh Shai, the 144,000, and the rest of that 1/3, the large multitude, the believers who are prophesied to get the kingdom on the first go around after the nuclear destruction wipes out America. And that's what we're looking forward to, not to continue to work these 9-to-5s and listen to the so-called white man, Esau Edom, and pay taxes, keep eating GMO foods. That's what these 2/3 Jakes wants. You give Jake a job, you give him a six-figure job and a house in the suburbs and a nice exotic car. Jake is happy as all hell. That's why ultimately majority of these 2/3 Jakes have to get put to death, because it don't matter how many times you tell them to come back to the Heavenly Father, because all hell's about to break loose. Ultimately, Jake is not going to repent. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 8 and verse 1. And he answered me, saying, the Most High had made this world for many, but the world had come for few. So this current world being ran by the white man, the devil, Esau, Edom, this world's for many. That's why you see majority of these people thriving, comfortable as all hell, even though inflation is at an all-time high. People are getting laid off. A lot of Jake is comfortable. Especially these Edomites, they have had generational wealth passed on to them by slavery a couple hundred years ago. Having our people, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, in slavery. But now you got a lot of Edomites struggling, ultimately because that's signaling the downfall of this current kingdom being ran by the white man. But the next kingdom, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven of Israel, established upon the planet Earth, ultimately the whole nation of Israel will be in the kingdom, and they're going to be in their right mind, in the new bodies. But the governing body, the ones who are going to get it on the first go around and receive that crown, are going to be the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3, the believers, helps, friends of the prophets that believe in the testimony of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. While the rest of these 2/3 they want to make this current world their rest, then okay, you can stay here and get burned up. And knowing that, ultimately that puts us in another spirit, to not be complacent here and want to be comfortable here and be chilling all the damn time like these 2/3 Jakes and these heathens. They're in that mindset. They want to stay here. They want to be comfortable here. So that's ultimately why Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai is going to leave them here to get burned up. But like it says in Micah chapter 2 and verse 10, arise ye and depart, for this isn't our rest. But Jake has made this their rest. They made this their bed, and that's why Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai is going to allow them to stay here, since they don't want to leave. They don't want to depart from this place spiritually, mentally, and even some shape, way, or form physically. And the Lord's going to leave him here. Because this is all Jake knows. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 2. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men. And the living will lay it to his heart. So it's better to go to the house of mourning, knowing that we're in captivity, knowing that this isn't it. Society is being ran upside down. It's being ran by the so-called white man, which is the devil that the scripture speaks about. And knowing these things, we know that this isn't the correct way the earth should be ran. That is being ran in complete wickedness. By the so-called white man. Polluting everything, polluting the water, polluting the air, growing GMO foods, polluting the mindset of these people. So that puts us in the spirit of mourning, because we know that it's wrong, that this world isn't being ran the correct way. But yet you got majority of our people, the 2/3 in a deep sleep, in darkness, completely oblivious to how the world really is supposed to be ran, even though they got that zeal, ultimately, because our people know that what they're doing and how the world is being ran is off. But yet they're not saying anything about it, because they're okay with it. They're okay with working a 9 to 5. They're okay with, having only 2 days off on the weekends. And so they could go to the damn clubs and the damn bars and to these sports venue events. If you give them that, Jake isn't going to complain. But when all these things get taken away, that's when they're going to be in the spirit of mourning. And that's when they're going to seek comfort, and they're not going to find it, because this is all Jake wanted, and this is all they know. And that's why Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to take it at a blink of an eye. When all hell breaks loose, he's going to take all their wealth that they've amounted over the years, working these executive corporate jobs, these 9 to 5s. Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to take that all away from these Jakes that wanted to make this, America, Babylon the Great, their rest. Because ultimately the elect are going to be in the mindset of wanting to get the hell out of here, wanting to be delivered out of captivity, wanting for this place to be destroyed. But the rest of our people, they're going to want to stay here. They're going to want to be comfortable here, because this is all they know. They don't think that it gets better than America. They don't think that it gets better than Babylon the Great. They don't think that they have something better coming, but they do. But majority of our people don't want to hear that. If you tell them that the white man, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, isn't going to be in the kingdom of heaven, that they're going to be done away with, that they're going to go into slavery along with these other nations. You tell them that all these nations are going to be in slavery, and they're like, okay, I'm down with that. But as soon as you tell them that the white man is going into slavery and he's going to be done away with, they start bugging out. And that's ultimately why Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to have to put majority of our people to death. This is Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 24. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So here Moses is in the highest position, almost at the highest position in Egypt. A major empire. But yeah, he was like, nah, I don't want that. I'm good. I know that, I'm not a Egyptian. And that's what the inkling, that zeal that we had. Like, damn, I know we're not just a so-called Negro, a so-called Latino, a so-called Native American. And once we came into the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and Yahweh Shemel Shai opened up our eyes and our ears so we could see what our true heritage was. We're like, okay, shit. We're not just, a so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. We're not just supposed to work a 9 to 5 and work for the white man for the rest of our lives. Ultimately, we're meant so we can serve Yahweh Shemel Shai, so we can serve the Lord, and do his will. Not do the will of Esau, Edom, and make this devil richer. Verse 25, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of Yahweh Shemel Shai than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. So here Moses had a very high position in the Egyptian empire. He had people under him. He had people that he could soldiers But yet he was like, nah, I don't want to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. You know, I don't want to participate in this Egyptian way of living. No, I'd rather suffer with my people, you know, with the Israelites. And on this side, you know, during this current age, that's the mindset that the elect are in. Like, you know, we know that we have to bear our cross and suffer just like Yahushua did. And that means forsaking this world, forsaking everything that we know and so-called love here. You know, hating our lives, not saying that, oh, yeah, I hate my life, I'm off myself. No, going into not loving the things in this world, because this current world is about to pass away. And that's something that majority of our people aren't considering. They think that America is going to continue on like forever. And that's why they're doing all the wickedness they're doing, because they think that Yahweh Bashim Shai is not going to hold them accountable. But when all hell breaks loose and when he starts putting a lot of our people to death, they're going to realize, damn, I fucked up. You know, I shouldn't have continued to, you know, do my own will and continue to follow after the ways of Babylon the Great America. Verse 26, esteeming the reproach of Hamashiach greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. And ultimately all these riches that Jake boasts in, you know, their 401ks, their stock market portfolio, gold and silver, jewelry, you know, their high-paying jobs, you know, their $100,000, $200,000 jobs, their $1 million jobs, you know, their exotic cars, you know, them posting their vacation pictures. That's all bullshit. That's about to be done away with when the Lord crashes this system. And he's about to crash it. It's evident. It's evident that the dollar is through, that all these nations are doing away with the dollar. So all this boasting that Jake does and their so-called wealth, it's a snare and a trap. And ultimately, the true wealth, the true riches is the kingdom of heaven. It's being delivered on that chariot, you know, being part of the elect, not working a damn 9 to 5 and working for the so-called white man. That's all bullshit. Verse 27, by faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, but he endured as seeing him who is invisible. So that's the mindset that the elect are going to be in. They're not going to fear what the so-called white man can do. They're not going to fear him when he comes down with that great wrath, because ultimately they know that Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to keep majority of his elect. Yes, some of the elect will have to be martyred for the testimony of Yahweh Shai, but ultimately they're going to be risen up first. Even if it means losing our lives on this side, because we don't have shit here. It don't matter if you have houses and cars, because that's all about to be taken away. And that's all going to be burnt up here. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 3 and verse 12. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with a fervent heat. So we're looking forward to the destruction of America, for the destruction of Babylon the Great, for this devil to be brought down and be put in chains and, you know, be put in subjection of the nation of Israel. Verse 13, nevertheless, we according to his promise look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. And that's what we're looking forward to. But we know that this isn't our place. And we know that America is going to be destroyed by fire. So we don't have that mindset of making this our rest, making this our world, our kingdom, because we know that it's about to be burned up by those intercontinental ballistic missiles to end America and to end the kingdom of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And we're looking forward to the kingdom of heaven. That's what we're looking forward to. That's the world we're looking forward to, where we're going to have the new bodies with the laws, statutes, commandments written in our inward parts. Lord willing, we'll be a part of that number. You know, but that's pretty much the point. Praise this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from and who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say Shalom.